up? Yo, welcome to Last Call Reacts. We got an interesting one here that I don't know if you follow certain things or uh certain nuances of the news and study or history. Um if you find that sort of thing interesting. And I found this one thing interesting here. And I'm just going to attempt to share the screen. Didn't work. Right there, if you could see the title, it says UN votes to recognize enslavement of Africans as gravest crime against humanity. Now, I didn't see this posted in a lot of places. As a matter of fact, you'll see up there on the top it says BBC. For the British news, not very many local things. So we got a movie playing in the background. I'm sorry, getting back to you here. Now, this is interesting to me, and it struck me in a couple of ways. I always remember talking about civil rights with my father and stuff like that, and he always thought he always echoed that they never declared it a crime against humanity. Everything else seems to take precedence. It prolongs things. It prolongs the ability to heal, for understanding, for any empathy, or your rightful place in history as well. So, of course, this is stirring up a whole lot of thoughts from people. And play this for a second.
Be necessary to pass any kind of additional legislation to include us in the Constitution. If you notice, whenever the people come here from Europe, they can come here from Poland, which is a communist country. They don't need any legislation to make this Polish person a citizen. They don't need any additional civil rights legislation to make the refugees from Hungary who come here citizens. They don't need any additional legislation to make anyone who comes to this country a citizen. But when it comes to the rights of the black people who are the descendants of slaves, then immediately new legislation is necessary. So this right here implies that when the Constitution was written, in some way or other, it must have excluded those of us who were slaves at that time. And because we were excluded from the Constitution when it was originally written, today they have to amend it in order to include us. But if you notice, the Civil War didn't include us in the Constitution. Had the Civil War included us in the Constitution, we would be citizens today. Had the amendments even to the Constitution actually included us, we would be citizens today. If the Supreme Court desegregation decision way back in 1954 was sufficient to include us into the jurisdiction of the Constitution, all of our problems would be solved today. So there's something about civil rights that makes it almost impossible for us to get it. So you have to know the difference between civil rights and human rights. As long as our people are...
Now, before he even gets to this, I just want to make sure that you're listening to what he's really getting into. And I thought this was a neat pick for the news that came out, that I'm going to read the article to you, or some bits of the article to you in a little bit, and how this associates with this as well. And at the end of Ramadan and Eid being the other day, I thought whoever would be a great figure than Malcolm X to get this across. Now, just quick, because I don't want this video to be too long, but one of the main things that people tried to divide Martin and Malcolm was that Martin was appeasing, the American mass, the American people, and kind of protecting America from the black rage and anger that it was said that Malcolm had expressed. I'm going to play a little bit more here, but before I do, this is where this is coming from here. So, where Malcolm is going, I'm just going to play it.
Are begging for civil rights, or they are labeling their struggle for freedom, justice, and equality under the label of civil rights, then what they do is leave us in the jurisdiction of Uncle Sam's court. And it's actually Uncle Sam who is guilty of all of the violation of our rights that have taken place in this country. So when you go to Uncle Sam to try and get some kind of redress over civil rights violations, you're taking your case to the man who's responsible for the violation. So the only way our people can really get some meaningful results, it has to be taken out of Uncle Sam's hands and taken into a world court. And the world court that has been set up to listen to the complaints of human rights violations is in the United Nations. Human rights are international, and civil rights come within the jurisdiction of the country where these rights are violated.
Now, how powerful is that? Over 60 years ago, articulates exactly what the problem is, why it can't be taken seriously, and why the healing at least can't begin. And that was way back then. That was also from 1963. I got it from Real Black Reels. They have a lot of archive footage and everything there. It's cool. But anyway, UN votes to recognize enslavement of Africans as gravest crime against humanity. Let's see if I can speed this up a little bit. United Nations General Assembly has voted to recognize the enslavement of Africans during the transatlantic slave trade is the gravest crime against humanity. Now, this is major because this is exactly what people were fighting for back in the day, to recognize this as a global atrocity, put it on the same level as other atrocities and things that we are taught to have respect for going to school year after year. That's embedded in there. The resolution proposed by Ghana, which is really important. And I know that there's now some people are coming out of the woodworks and saying that people are trying to steal their shine for stuff. And kind of like what Malcolm was saying earlier is like, you don't need to declare your I guess whiteness in a sense to be white, to have citizenship in America. And as opposed to blacks going that deep, we still need or some would require, this I guess it would be under the label of alienation, which I don't even want to go into the whole thing. Believe what you want to believe. I believe in a big picture. I believe this is very good for the UN. It sets precedents for anybody nation legacy that's part of that to at least be able to appeal something and not only start the redress, as Malcolm says, but reparations and whatnot as well. So Ghana called it the designation along for urging members of the United States to consider apologizing for the slave trade and contributing to the reparations fund. It does not mention specific amounts of money. The proposal was adopted. Now listen to this. The proposal was adopted with 123 votes in favor and 3 against. The United States, this is the 3 against, the United States, Israel, and Argentina. Isn't that goddamn interesting? And I'm laughing, but it's really not funny, but it kind of like shows you the stance and what you're facing with, and then align with these countries as well as the only 3 to oppose that. And United States should be far separate, but it just shows you how embedded it is in people's mind where they stand on the issue too. 52 countries abstained, including United Kingdom, European Union, and member states. So again, UK didn't even, they walked away. They walked away from the shit. Countries like the UK have long rejected calls to pay reparations, saying today's institutions cannot be held responsible for past doings. And that, of course, is a very easy stance. It's the one that you hear, well, how am I? I always say when people speak on privilege and whatnot, even if they don't realize that they have it, that there's the pendulum swings, 2 ways there. It comes back. So if somebody's succeeding off the hard work in the back, then somebody is constantly, whatever the opposite of generational wealth is, generational poverty, which it's all there. The proof is in the pudding. So they did that and had it recorded here as well. Who else was in there? And that's basically about it for the news. I think it's a very big step. It does take me back to what Malcolm was talking about. I love his speeches, and just he says it in a more fiery speech. Exactly what he said in here was, you don't take your case to the criminal being the U.S. You take your criminal to court, which would be the UN. And it's just an amazing thing that, is it too little too late? Does it even matter? To some people, is this so far gone? Would kids be able to understand the significance of this if some of the adults, might not understand why this might be a thing, a little more on Malcolm X here. And I think I said it before, but this is from 1963, the Ballad of the Bullet speech that he was giving there, of course, for the elections.
People may wonder why our brothers from Africa and Asia have not spoken out more boldly or without compromise on the injustices that the 22 million Afro-Americans experience in this country. They can't speak out. As long as these injustices are labeled by us as civil rights, then this remains a domestic issue, and none of our people from abroad, because of protocol, can become involved in Uncle Sam's domestic problems. So all the civil rights groups have to do is expand the struggle from civil rights to human rights. And once it is expanded to the level of human rights, then this puts us in a position to charge Uncle Sam with violating the UN Charter on Human Rights. We can take it before the United Nations, and other nations of this earth can then side with us and indict Uncle Sam for the mistreatment of 22 million Afro-Americans. The very fact that the struggle of the black people in South Africa, or I should say the injustices that have been experienced by black people in South Africa has come before the UN, or the injustices experienced by our own people in Angola has been brought before the UN. Even the oppression of the Hungarians has been brought before the UN. The plight of the Jews in Soviet Russia, and there's only 3 million of them in Russia, has been brought before the UN. Well, then why hasn't the problem of the 22 million Afro-Americans come before the United Nations? It has not come before them because the leaders of the civil rights struggle don't understand what civil rights actually amount to. When they are mature to the point where they can see that their present struggle has kept them under Uncle Sam's jurisdiction, and Uncle Sam is not morally capable of solving this problem, then they will shift it out of the courts of Uncle Sam and take it to the courts of the United Nations on the level of human rights, and we'll get some kind of meaningful results. As long as we keep it at the civil rights level, we alienate the support of our brothers and sisters in Africa and Asia. But when we shift it to the level of human rights, we have the support of billions of black, brown, red, and yellow people from all over the world.
I'm going to play that back for you.
Then they will shift it out of the courts of Uncle Sam and take it to the courts of the United Nations on the...
Now, this is very important, what he said and what his mentality is about the unification of black people all across the world, rather than a zoned in one that's, again, don't want to get into it to offend some people. I definitely would debate it, of why his mentality is inclusion rather than the separation and whatnot. And I have my own ideas as to why that is, but this is not what this video is about. A little more on Malcolm X before we close it up. But listen to this again.
Level of human rights, and we'll get some kind of meaningful results. As long as we keep it at the civil rights level, we alienate the support of our brothers and sisters in Africa and Asia. But when we shift it to the level of human rights, we have the support of billions of black, brown, red, and yellow people from all over this earth behind us.
And we see that. We see that now. It doesn't matter who started any petition or who gets credit for what. This is the other thing about this, you know, if you compare to other people, and I hate to make all of these comparisons this way, but, you know, one group had a guy, Hitler, right? We got Uncle Sam. We got a fictitious symbol for all the wrongdoings and whatnot. And you can't go back really to arrest anybody who started that, some of the people that perpetrated that, or just because they benefited from that. You know, with the Holocaust, it's different. They would arrest one of the guys in a fucking deathbed in a hospice if they were a Gestapo and they managed to track him down still, right? You have nobody to go back and forth. But this was really this argument of bringing the transatlantic slave trade to the UN and for them to recognize it is really the question. And something that I've said a few times is, well, where is our Nuremberg, right? Where's that thing to make it dealt with, redressed, recognized? The fact that it hasn't been declared a crime in humanity delayed progress, delayed the healing, the realization of the situation, or any way to redress it, as Malcolm X beautifully articulated it in that speech that he did there as well. I just wanted to give a little food for thought as I ran across that and see what kind of discussions come out of this as well. Because this is kind of big. It's big, and things could be done with this as well as a precedent has been set, and people could learn off of it, branch out from this, strategize off of this if no ego is involved. What do you think about this? I definitely think it's an interesting time in history. Is it too little too late? I don't know. Thanks for checking me out. Last call. Peace.